Welcome to the Veterans Archives podcast, where we honor our nation's veterans by preserving and sharing their stories. You can also hear Veterans Archives on Wreaths Across America Radio every Thursday at 5 p.m. To learn more about our mission, watch veteran interviews, or find out how to record a veteran story, please visit veteransarchives.org. And if you or a veteran you know needs support or resources, we encourage you to download the Battle Buddy app from vetlifetoday.org. Today is Monday, April 13th. We're talking with Calvin Jones, who served in the United States Marine Corps. So good evening, I think it is now, isn't it, Calvin?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right.
It is. Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking time out to talk with me today.
My pleasure.
Well, we'll get started. I'm going to ask probably the first and easiest question.
Oh boy.
When and where were you born?
Well, I was born in Lansing, Michigan in 1953. I was born right here in Lansing at Sparrow Hospital to Dupree and Rachel Jones.
So you grew up in Lansing your whole life?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, tell me a little bit about your parents.
My dad was a World War II veteran, and he came home and, raised a family. He told us some stories about, being in the Army, and he was a cook. And, we heard his experiences often in terms of what he did and what was going on, that type thing. He worked at the time it was called the State Highway Department here in Lansing, Michigan, and he was one of two African American men that actually worked at that place. My mother was a housekeeper, and she took care of us kids and took care of the house, and we had very nice upbringing, that type thing, and we were very fortunate to live the lifestyle that we did.
Yeah. What about brothers and sisters?
I'm the oldest of seven.
Seven?
And I'm the oldest of seven, and two have since perished, but the other four, they live here in Lansing, Chicago, and Washington State.
Yeah, so what was it like being the oldest with that many kids, with that many brothers and sisters? That's almost a basketball team, isn't it? Or a softball team.
It is. And I was very fortunate being the oldest. I pretty much looked out for my brothers and sisters, and, I was a good kid in school. I loved music, and I got along with my classmates and everything. So for me, it was, just a life of, leisure and learning and growing and learning about Lansing and just enjoying as much of everything as I did. Yeah. We were a church-going family, and every Sunday, we were in church, and, it was, I don't know, I didn't really know what was going on around me, but, I'd be chewing gum, and I wasn't supposed to be chewing gum in church. And,
that's universal, Calvin.
Yeah, exactly, but I didn't know, but, and then, they had me do an Easter speech, Christmas speech, when those times came up as well. And, I was shy at first, but once I started, it was like, no, I can do this. I can make this happen. Yeah.
So you've always kind of had a gift for public speaking then?
I think so, and I enjoy it too. And even today, I thoroughly enjoy the public speaking aspect of things. I consider myself a lifelong learner, and I'm always working hard to learn something new and find better ways to get along with people, irrespective of where they are in life. So that's what I do.
Okay. Yeah. Well, speaking of being a lifelong learner, let's talk a little bit about school. Where did you go to grade school then?
Well, I started at Cedar Street School on the north side of town, and then that building was torn down. And then I went to Willow Street School, and then I went to Otto Middle School, and that's when we moved to the east side of town. And so I started out at Walter French, and then I went over to Pattengale and graduated from Eastern High School.
So interestingly enough, I went to Pattengale, graduated from Eastern. So did my mom. So did my father-in-law. All my uncles went there.
Man, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were fun times.
Quite a tradition.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how was it for you growing up in Lansing? Did you enjoy it? Did you have a great childhood? What are some of the things that interested you?
Well, my childhood wasn't always great. At an early age, my mother and father separated, and they eventually divorced. And my father was when he wasn't drunk, he was a nice guy. But when he was drunk, he was Superman. And he was just a little guy, so he wasn't a real Superman.
Right.
And I kept wondering why. We'd be driving down the street and we'd be running we'd be bumping into the curb, bumping into different people's cars and stuff like that. People were always mad at my dad. I didn't understand any of that. So, one day the state came in and they took my brothers and sisters and they put us in foster homes. And, all I know is at an early age, they came in in the heat of the night. And, my father had, he had done some terrible things to my mother, and they didn't give us any explanation at all.
Yeah.
And then we were put into different foster homes. My brother and sister, we stayed as a group for a while, and then we transitioned to some other homes. And then finally, my brother and myself, we went to a religious home, that type thing. And, I didn't understand any of that. They didn't let us talk with our mother or father about anything. I didn't, I was taken from a well-kept home, a comfortable environment, and put into an environment I had never experienced before. But the family that I lived with were just excellent people. The man that was the man of the home, Mr. Davis, he was a religious man. He was a veteran as well. I think he was the Navy. And there again, his wife, Mrs. Davis, Miriam, she was a stay-at-home mother. And they already had 4 kids. So we joined that group. Now, I wasn't the oldest in that group, so I had to kind of learn, my place in
Right.
all of it, that type thing.
Right.
But I soon learned that, being in that family, I had some talents that the rest of them didn't have. I could sing. And so, of course, every time we went to church, people wanted me to sing, that type thing, and I did. And I learned to play the piano a little bit, and learned to play a few other instruments a little bit, that type thing. But I most enjoyed playing football in the street. I didn't really play basketball very well, but I found at an early age I was very fast. And I was only fast because the bike that I had was a girl's bike. And I rode that bike all over the neighborhood. I rode it everywhere. I got teased about riding a girl's bike and everything, but, I learned how to do a wheelie, for an entire block.
Right.
And I could do different things on that bike that no one else could. I learned to put a chain on that bike. I learned to grease the chain on that bike. I learned to fix the flat tire. I learned to, apply spokes on the wheels, that type thing. And this was all through a lot of experimental stuff, but that's what I had to do. I had one bike, and that was it.
Had to make it last.
I had to make it last.
Yeah.
And all the clothing that I received was pretty much, it was hand-me-down clothing. So, I mean, when the older boys in the house, when they were done with the clothing that they had, I pretty much wore the rundown pants and stuff that they had, that type thing. So I became very used to ironing patches on my jeans. I became very used to learning how to sew, how to put buttons on different things, that type thing, how to sew holes in my shirt, how to sew holes in my socks, whatever it needed to be, because a lot of it was self-sufficient. And you either did it or you went without.
Right.
So I learned to adjust. And then at about 13 years of age, my mother was fortunate enough to buy a home on the east side of town, and we were able to come back back home as a family. And in the meantime, I didn't know where my brothers and sisters were, and I didn't contact them for about 7 or 8 years because I didn't know where they were.
Right.
But as I began to play football, as I began to play football, and went out for midget tackle football, and they promised me an opportunity to be the running back, and that didn't happen. So I paid them back when I played linebacker. I was just a scrawny kid, but I tried to tear their helmets off when they came around my side. That's how I got the name Deacon Jones.
Okay.
Because I was fearless. I would run into the biggest guy there and just knock him out of the way, and get to the running back and try to just put him into the ground. Yeah, and they wouldn't give me a chance at playing running back. It was more political than anything else.
Right.
But I learned through that process that I could do some things out there and make a difference for the team. So I said, hey, well, if it's the best thing for the team, then I'll go ahead and do it. And that's pretty much gave me an opportunity to do things in the rest of my life that had to do with, serving and doing things in a team concept. All the sports I played, basketball, football, running track, it's all been associated with a team effort. And, the major stuff I did at school was also, it was all about working together as a team.
Interesting lesson for a young man to learn.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with everything that had gone on before.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And to say I wasn't bitter about the experience, I was. Some changes. I never understood why, we were taken out of the home.
Right.
And I didn't understand why the state didn't allow us to, talk with our parents and brothers and sisters and stuff like that. So I acted out, and lo and behold, I was smart enough to, get a gang that went around terrorizing the neighborhood. We'd go running up to a house, knock on the door, and then run, or, sometimes we'd pack snowballs and throw snowballs at cars and watch the tail lights get real red and everything, and then we'd take off. Needless to say, I was always fast.
Right.
They never caught me. Sometimes they'd catch people in my gang, but they never caught me. But it was just fun stuff. But it was, it was detrimental to anything I wanted to do. I sat in the principal's office. I learned to have excellent penmanship because, I would always have to write in the principal's office, I will not fight, I will not fight, I will not fight. They made me write it, 500,000 times or something. But, when it came conference time, they said, wow, when he's in school, he's a great student. But when he's coming to school and when he's going home, he's a little devil.
You're working out those aggressions,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And I guess I was. But lo and behold, in middle school, it dawned on me, all the people in my gang were people that I had beaten up, and I pretty much told them what to do. And, it dawned on me as, parties came up and everything else, I was never invited to attend. And so I had to change my behavior, and I was very fortunate that I was able to, see my way to making that change, because, that kind of track would have certainly, ended up with me being in prison.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not a good path to be on.
No, not at all.
But interesting, that's a pretty young age to have that sort of self-awareness to say, I got to do something different or this isn't going to turn out well.
Yeah. And it may have been that way because as I was thinking about it in middle school and then going to the big school, which at the time I thought I was going to Sexton, because we lived on the northwest side of town.
Yeah.
I started thinking about, I'm just a little scrawny guy. And some of those guys are like grown men. So maybe I better start making some friends, because I don't think I'm a pretty good fighter, but those guys could pick me up and just slam me down. I wasn't an overly big guy. I was a scrawny kid, but, I knew enough to fight, but, I wouldn't I wasn't in the heavyweight division.
No, and someday they were going to figure that out.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
I was still a bantamweight, and it was like, hey, you know what? Yeah, you're pretty good, with your hands and stuff like that, dealing with, kids your own age as far as fighting, that type thing. But no, that's not going to work. But yeah, I was able to realize I had to change some things because I just felt so much left out of things that all the other kids were going to. They go to parties and stuff, and I was never invited because I was always considered a troublemaker. So I figured it out, and I was able to make some transitions and then become more accepted by my community and that type thing. So it worked out well.
So as you made these changes and you transitioned into high school, what was high school like for you? Did you have any favorite subjects? Did you continue playing sports?
Yeah.
Did you get invited to some parties?
Oh, yeah. High school was a transition year for me because I've always seen myself as a leader. So going to Eastern High School at the time I went, and social studies was my favorite subject. I learned about social studies. I learned about Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, all of the presidents and the different things that they did. And we had encyclopedias at home, so I would read the books every now and then, read about the history and that kind of good stuff. And I always did well in history. But one day it became obvious to me there were no black people in the history books. And so I asked my teacher about it, and she says, well, just go with the books that you have. And so I learned about, I learned about the Black Panther Party. I learned about Malcolm X. I was in the throes of learning about Martin Luther King, some folks that I didn't hear a great deal about in school, that type thing. And so I wrote about them. And I wasn't an exceptionally good writer, but I knew enough to go to the encyclopedia and write things down that were in the encyclopedia, that type thing. One day, my social study teacher, he gave me my report back, and he had red markers all over the thing, and he gave me my first E, my first F, and I said, he said, where'd you get this junk? And I said, well, I got it from the encyclopedia. And he said, why? I said, because we bought the encyclopedias and that's where I get my information. He said, none of this is true. I said, what do you mean none of it's true? He said, you go back and research it at the library. I want you to read these books, read these magazines, and then I want you to bring it back to me. I said, man, yeah. I said, Mr. Hollister, I said, you're just full of junk. I said, you're a white man. You don't know anything about this. He says, Cal, I was there. I was there at Rest University when the police came to the university and took out their billy clubs and knocked us around. I was there. I said to myself, I'll never judge a book by its cover ever, ever again. And I went back and I researched all the stuff that he talked about, and he was absolutely right. And so I took the time to write it out, put my footnotes in it and everything. And that's when I took my education, quite seriously then. Mr. Hollister was David Hollister. David Hollister was a brilliant teacher at Eastern. He went on to be a long-serving representative for Lansing. He went on to be mayor. Every time he needed something, I was there to help him out in his campaign, help him in any way that I can. Matter of fact, I think last year I took him to an event at at MSU, to one of the economic luncheons. But he was the guy that really made a change in my life to really study and understand what I'm writing about and take the time to, make sure that it's absolutely correct. And from then on, I said, I'll never judge a book by its cover again. Nope. But he was a teacher that made a difference in my life. Up to that point, I was a decent student. I was a jock. I played football. I learned to play basketball later in life. I traveled a lot when I, had the ball, that type of thing. But I knew my advantage was speed. So I used my speed on the basketball court to get by my opponent. And then I played defense, making sure that I could jump and, knock the ball out of the air before the shot went off, that type of thing. So I was a decent athlete. I wasn't a great athlete, but I was a decent athlete, and I enjoyed it.
We probably ran into each other, and here's why. When I was in high school, I went to high school with Jerry Hollister.
Oh, yeah.
And when
His dad.
his
Jerry's
son.
his son. Yeah.
So when he was running, I don't remember which seat, but they did a pig roast at his house.
They
where
always
they
did a
buried
pig
the pig in the
Yes.
backyard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we,
Yes.
Jerry, myself, and a bunch of my high school buddies were there helping out with that. So
we probably crossed paths, man. We probably crossed paths.
I'm thinking we did. When you said Hollister, I thought, no way he's talking about Dave Hollister.
Yes, that's my guy. Yes, that's my guy. Yeah. He and Christine, his wife, they send me Christmas cards every year. I send them back. I check on him. He's going through some health issues now, but I still, take the time to go over and say hi to him and see what's going on, that type of thing. And he remembers the lesson he taught me. So we gained a friendship early on in life, and we continue that today.
Do you find that it's kind of true, though, that no matter how successful we are, there's always those people like behind the scenes that helped us get there?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And I never forget them because, where I'm at today, people would say, wow, I want your job, I want your life, that type of thing. But they don't know what I went through to get where I'm at today.
Right.
That's why I tell them, no, you don't, you see, the polish and everything in terms of where I'm at now. But from what I went through, I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Yeah.
That's what I had to go through. Yeah.
So it sounds like high school was a great learning experience for you. And so what happens after high school? Well,
when I went to, after high school, I went to LCC. I started out there. I didn't have a strong instructor like Mr. Hollister, so I played chess most of the day.
Okay.
I'd go to the library and, find people that could, play, some chess. I learned the art of chess real easy. And, I spent most of my time in the library. I took some courses at LCC. I really wasn't interested in it, and my grades bore that out.
Yeah.
I started working at a place called Speaker Hines and Thomas over on Thomas Street. It's a book magazine place. And I started out as an apprentice, and I said to myself, I'm doing this, but this is not really what I want to do. It doesn't excite me, and I don't have anything to motivate me. So I said to myself, well, it's probably time for me to get out of here and go someplace else because I'm not happy here. I'm not doing anything. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not interested in school. I'm not interested in, doing a lot of laborious work or anything like that. So I said, well, I guess if I get laid off, I'm going to look at my military options and see what's available there. And then lo and behold, I received a letter from the United States government saying that the draft was still in effect. And here's your number. And you're welcome to go to the station in Detroit and, get signed up and do those kinds of things that need to be done. Now, even though I said I was interested in the military, the Vietnam War was going on. And every night, well, not every night, but most nights, I would be at the television watching Walter Cronkite talk about the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
He always talked about how many of the Vietnamese were killed, and he also talked about how many of the Americans were killed. There were always more Vietnamese killed than there were Americans. But I knew something was up because most of my friends who did go in the military, they came back in a body bag. And I said, well, if we're really winning the war, why are we there? Why are my friends coming back in the state that they are? And I never understood why we were there in the first place. People were marching, people were parading in the streets against the war, and I guess I just didn't understand it either. But I knew as a young man, I said, you know what? I've always been in a team concept, so I got to find a way to, represent this country one way or another. But I knew from the examples of what was coming back home. Friends and relatives were coming back, missing arms. They missed an eye. They missed that and the other. They didn't really talk about what was really going on.
Right.
So I said to myself, I'm interested in going. If I have to go, I'm going to do my best to make sure that the other person dies for this country, for their country, because I'm not dying for this country. And I also had to challenge with, maybe I should go to Canada. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should just leave, because I don't know enough about this war to put my life on the line. So I thought a lot about going to Quebec and, hiding out there or living there or whatever. And I prayed about it, and then I finally came to the resolution, hey man, you know what? So many of your family have gone to represent this country. It's your time. And I went to the duty station, and I took my test for the airport, or the Air Force. And they said, yeah, you score high on the ACT, you score high on this, that, and the other thing. We'll get you going. I said, well, how soon can I leave? They said, we'll put you down for 1 year, and you can leave then. I went back, I thought about it, and I said, you know what? What am I going to do for the next year?
Yeah.
Besides get into some trouble.
Year is a long time for a young man.
It was a long time, man. That was like light years away.
Yeah.
So I looked at, getting into the Navy, and I looked at the Army. And mind you, looking at the Navy, I was a decent swimmer. I wasn't a great swimmer. And I said, no, I am not going out there on a boat somewhere. No, I fall off and I can't even save myself. I said, it's not going to happen. Army, most of my family had been in the Army, that type thing. And, it just didn't seem like, it was the right fit for me. So I also read about the Air Force. I knew enough about the Air Force. I said, well, I'll try the Marine Corps and see what they have to say. And when I went over there, I was so shocked that, all the information they gave me, it seemed to fit, who I was.
Uh-huh.
And I went back home, talked to my parents about it, and talked to my neighbors and family about it. And they said, Cal, are you crazy? Are you crazy? I said, man, we never heard of a black Marine. Never, ever heard of a black Marine. So them bad Marines will kill you. So all they got is big, thick white boys who will kill you. And I said to myself, you know what? If I'm on their team, they're not going to kill me, because we have to do what we need to do to represent the country.
Right.
And I said, you know what? I've grown up as a fighter anyway. So I said, if they're that talented, then imagine, if I'm going to go to war with somebody, I want to go with the biggest, baddest, meanest people in the world who can actually, end this war and get us back home, that type thing.
Right.
Well, again, my family gave me a lot of resistance in terms of not going and not knowing anything about the Marine Corps, and they just didn't want me to go. But I went anyway. And I signed up, and then when I went there, I went to Parris Island, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And Mark, throughout my life, I had been more of a homeboy. The furthest I'd gone outside the state of Michigan was Youngstown, Ohio. I had never gone anywhere else. I never went north. I never went south. Furthest I had ever went was Youngstown, Ohio. That was it. So going to Parris Island was a big leap for me. I didn't know what I was getting into.
Right.
And I didn't, I'd read some things about boot camp and stuff like that, and it's like, I can handle this. This is easy peasy. Oh, man. They put us on the bus. We went down there. We got down there in the middle of the night. Guy came storming on the bus, fussing and cussing at us and everything, put the fear of God in us. And, whoo, man, I got out of there with the rest of them. And they had us standing there for, it seemed like an eternity, getting our stuff, getting our T-shirts or skivvies, getting a haircut. They asked me what kind of haircut I wanted. I had a nice afro, and I said, just trim a little on the side. He said, welcome, sure, I will. Boom, boom, boom. I said, oh my God, that's not what I asked for. He said, who are you? I said, no, sir, I'm fine.
Right.
And the more I looked around, everybody looked like me. They were getting their heads shaved off and everything. And, it was, I knew I was into some serious trouble then.
Did you think about maybe you had misjudged what you were doing at that point?
Absolutely. Yeah. I thought about it tremendously, but I was too scared to say anything or do anything.
Right.
And there were so many people there that were, Marine trainees, and some of them were African Americans, and that was like, oh, okay, hey, this is all right. It's a mixed group. Okay, we can bond together, maybe hang out. But man, those drill instructors, every moment of every day, we were fearful of, what could possibly happen, that type thing. And I think we started off with, oh my God, we had, I want to say close to 100 people that wanted to be Marines, and a number of them just didn't make it.
Yeah.
I was a sprinter. I was always a sprinter. They gave me the flag, and I was going to run. I was up the front of the line, and we were running and chanting and doing some things like that. And believe me, I was aware of my circumstances. I said, you know what? I've never gone more than 100 yards, man. I can speed with the best of them. But you're talking about 3 miles, 4 miles. I tried it, man, and I could not make it. And, before I, fell down or whatever, because I couldn't make it, man, they grabbed a flag, and then there was some folks in my squad that, picked me up, and we ran all the way in. And at that moment, I said, man, I got to change my whole attitude. I can't come in here and just be me. I got to follow, and I got to make sure that I can do this in the future. Yeah. I never got back to the situation of holding the flag, but it was an honor to just start off with it and, be one of those that, was up front, that type thing. Boot camp was the scariest time of my life. They broke me down like I had never been broken down before. I was too scared to do anything or say anything. Mm-hmm. So anytime they told me to do anything, I just did it.
So let me ask, is this new for you? Was that new for you when that had to happen?
That was absolutely brand new for me.
Yeah.
Now, remember, I was an oldest child,
right? And
I kind of called the shots, and then I went to a foster family. I didn't call all the shots, but I called some of the shots.
Right.
But in boot camp, they didn't play any of that.
You didn't have your gang in boot camp, did you?
I didn't have nothing. I didn't have nothing. There was nothing. There was nobody but me. And I said to myself, I got to find a way to graduate and get out of here, with something that says honorable discharge or whatever the case might be. And it wasn't easy. I mean, we had pugil stick fighting, and I was the champion in terms of pugil stick fighting, not because I was the best or the baddest. I was just too scared to get hit. I'd fight the biggest guys, the baddest guys out there, but man, I was always leveling the first blow. Mm-hmm. We had the helmets and everything. I'd get up, wham! I didn't wait for nothing. I'd go for the head, I'd go for the body, and I didn't quit until the drill instructor pulled me off. They called me a bulldog because, I was tenacious. I said to myself, I'm not going to take a beating out here from these guys, and I didn't. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Then we went to a big tank, to which I think was, I don't know if it's a gas tank or whatever, but it was an ammonia tank, so that you could become familiar with what chemical warfare was, that type of thing. I can't do this. They went in there, I went in there, shut that, and they let the fumes in, man. Everybody their nose was running and everything else, man. It was not a good sight. Mm-mm.
No.
We had swimming, and I was a decent swimmer, but nobody ever asked me to jump in a pool with my helmet, my rifle, my boots, my fatigues, my canteen. I said, I can't take all this stuff around, man. You will.
It's amazing what you can do when you have to do it.
When you have to do it, yeah.
Right.
When you have to do it. And as people jumped into that pool, into the deep end and stuff like that, I said, man, this is not a good thing. This is not a good thing. And I wondered why, when we did have a moment standing in line in our barracks, I wondered why people asked me, man, can you swim? Can you swim? I said, yeah. Okay. And then when we got out there and they jumped in the pool or whatever, I never saw so many people who didn't know how to swim.
Yeah.
And they didn't just get out of the pool. The drill instructors let them struggle with it. Mm-hmm. They took down some water. They took down some serious water before they would bring them out. And even then, they were cussing them out and stuff like that. And I said to myself, oh gosh, and I don't know how this is going to work. Yeah, I can swim, but this stuff is heavy. I don't know if this is going to work. But man, I dove in there and it was hard as all get out. I had never done anything like that in my life, but I came up and I was able to swim the length, and I was so lucky. But, a lot of that stuff when I was swimming, I tried to take my belt off, my canteen, and stuff like that. It made me go back and get it. But man, I'd never faced anything like that. But in the end, I knew that training would come in handy, because I said, if we do encounter where we have to do something, we're going to be on a ship, we're going to have to get off that ship, run to the beach. A number of those brothers couldn't swim. Right. That's why they asked me if I could swim.
Right.
Man, you could save me. No, I ain't saving you. I'm not a lifeguard. I'm not saving you. Well, you know how to swim. I can jump on your back. I said, like hell you can. You'll be dead. Because
you're too busy saving yourself.
Thank you. I said, I ain't like that, man. No. So they didn't make it through the swimming stuff. So I guess, they went to another platoon where they had to start all over again, that type of thing. But my mother sent me some cookies for my birthday. And it wasn't pretty. It came to the barracks. Drill sergeant said, hey, Jones, get up here. I came out there. Somebody sent you a package. You got enough for all of us? I said, I don't know what it is, sir. Open it. I opened it. It was chocolate chip cookies, and my mother knew I loved chocolate chip cookies. He said, how many are in there? I counted them out, and about 10, 15. It's not enough for everybody? Nope. No, sir. Put them on the floor. So I put them on the floor. I was thinking I was going to have a chance to pass them out to my colleagues, that type thing. Yeah. Now stamp on them. Step on them. I want you to crush every one of them in that box. And I did. I had to do it. And then, of course, we had to work as a team. So if anybody messed up, everybody paid. Yeah, we did bends and thrusts there and push-ups there more than I could ever count. But I tell you what, there was no giving up because you had to do it. Mm-hmm. So anytime somebody messed up, at night or whatever, if we had to do a lot of bends and thrusts and push-ups or whatever, we would do blanket parties. We would get that green blanket, get that ivory soap, and beat the mess out of them. And it didn't matter if it was a big person or a small person, it didn't matter. If you got us in trouble, we took care of you at night, and everybody knew that. Mm-hmm. So that's why they slept like this, and most of the time I sleep like that, and I was keeping my eyes on everything, just in case they made a mistake and was coming after me.
Right. Beating up on the wrong guy.
Beating up on the wrong guy, yeah.
I think that people don't really believe that stuff happened, but that was part of boot camp. That was part of that was a part of educating people to work as a team.
You had to work as a team, and if you didn't work as a team, you weren't passing at all. Yeah. When I went to the rifle range, I had never fired a rifle before. I'd always use my hands to kick somebody's butt if I needed, and if it came to it, I thought, well, maybe I'll get some brass knuckles, and knock somebody out or something like that. So when they gave me that M16, they told us how to use it and everything. I don't know, and I was using, bam, it would hit me in my face, bam. I had a black eye, my face was swollen up and everything. I never hit the target. I couldn't, I just couldn't do it. I looked through the sights and I knew that the rifle was going to come back and kick me in the face, and I it just didn't work out.
Well, hold on a second. So what year were you in basic training in boot camp?
I think it was 74.
74. And
74 to 76.
So
they had 2-year enlistments at that time.
So it's 2026. So that was 52 years ago. Mm-hmm. And you just corrected yourself on a gun or a rifle.
Absolutely.
I mean, talk about things that stick in your head.
That sticks in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a long time ago, but you immediately corrected yourself.
Yeah, because when I came in there, I mean, they made sure you knew it was a rifle. And if anyone ever forgot that it was a rifle, you were doing bends and thrusts. And not only were you doing bends and thrusts, everybody was doing bends and thrusts. And when I say that to say this. You weren't doing 5 or 10. You'd do them until they said stop.
Right.
So we learned the language, we learned to stay out of trouble, and we learned to do everything they said do. I mean, it wasn't an option. I mean, that's what you had to do. My drill instructor came over when I was at the range, and the first time, I didn't qualify. I finished UNC. On the rifle range because I just wasn't doing it right. He worked with me, and then I was able to, get a sharpshooter badge, and he made me understand. He said, Cal, he said, well, he didn't say Cal, of course. They just call you whatever they call you. Private, you better learn how to use it. This is your girlfriend. This is your wife. This is going to save you right here. When you're shooting at the enemy, you don't get a second chance. You have to make sure that first shot is your best shot because you don't get a second chance. And the more he drilled that into me, the more it became evident to me that I have to know how to break this rifle down, clean it, do the things that need to be done, and I need to shoot very accurately. And, after that, I mean, I was cool and good to go. But a number of folks, felt like, I've shot rifles, I've shot guns before, but they didn't finish well on the rifle range at all. So, I learned to shoot very efficiently, very effectively, and honor and respect that weapon in a way that was, important because I knew my life depending on it. I will share this with you as well. When I got out of boot camp, I was at North Carolina for a while, Camp Lejeune. I wasn't there very long. I was in logistics. I was in supply. I was like, okay, it's nice to be part of it and that type thing. But I wasn't there long before they shipped me out to Okinawa, Japan.
Oh.
And in Okinawa, I worked in a motor pool. And, to me, it was like a boys' camp. I mean, I had a driver come over in the morning, Thomas Dow. He picked me up. He'd pick me up in the Jeep, take me over to the motor pool. I'd order supplies and logistics for him, that type thing. I had my nice office there, and then, in the afternoon, he'd come back and, drive me into town for lunch or whatever. I'd go back to work, and then he'd pick me up, take me back to the barracks, that type thing. And it was like a day job.
Yeah, life was good.
Life was good. It was cool. We wore a green uniform at that time.
Yeah.
Black boots and everything, and it was always highly shined and ready to go. I had a mama-san who ironed my clothes for me, and shined my shoes. She ironed my t-shirts. She ironed my skivvies. I was always prepared for inspection, and that's how I moved up in rank. Moved up to when I started, I was private, but in 2 years I had reached sergeant. So every promotion I received was meritorious.
Wow.
So, I took the tests. I had time to focus on, what was important, think about, sending money back home to my family so that, they had some money, that type thing. But one day, they woke us up in the middle of the night, and they told us over an intercom system, get over to the armory and get our weapons. I said, wait a minute. I'm a corporal or sergeant in the Marine Corps. I don't have to do this. I mean, I got a nice job and stuff. I'm not going to the Army. I know something's happening, and that's serious business.
Yeah.
Well, I found out the Cambodians had seized the American ship, the Miragwest,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted us to go to the Army to get our weapons because we were the platoon that was scheduled to go out there and rescue the boat. I had heard through some chatter that there was a reconnaissance unit that was on their way out there, and if they didn't rescue the boat, we were the next to go out there and get it. And so I thought about it, and I said, you know what? Oh, that's not what I signed up for. I don't, going, to get this ship in a darn of night. I don't know how many of these guys can swim. I don't know where I'm going. Yeah. I don't know how I'm getting back. And, I knew, if I'm going to be loaded up in a ship like a sardine and then running out into the water or doing whatever I had to do, I said, well, I don't really know what I'm doing here. So I prayed on it, and I said, wow, Lord, if you get me out of this, I said, I'll go home and I'll give everything I can to make my community better. But, this is not something I really want to do. But if this is something you want me to do, I'll do the best I can to, bring that ship back home. So we got our weapons and helmets and canteens and everything. They lined us up out there at the Armory and then started marching over toward the ship that we were supposed to get on. And I said to myself, Lord, if you're not awake, I'm really asking you please to get me out of this, because this is not what I really signed up for. And lo and behold, before we got to the ship, they let us know over the intercom system that the reconnaissance unit had rescued the ship, and we were allowed to go back to the Army, turn in our weapons, and go back to the barracks. And I said to myself, wow, I really don't have any say-so in terms of what I'm doing here. And these stripes don't mean a great deal of anything other than I'm getting more money than I had when I started. I said, but I got to learn a skill, and I got to learn a number of skills so that when I do go back into the civilian world, I can do something productive. So, when it was time for me to go, they wanted me to re-enlist. They were pretty confident I was going to go to, officer training school. And they had talked to me about it a few times, and the lieutenants there, as well as the captain, had talked to me about, going to officer training school. And I thought about it, and I said, wow, 6 years of this? I don't know if I can make that. And it's like, 6 years of doing this? I think I'm ready to go back home. He said, yeah, but all of your schooling will be paid for, your degree, and you get this and that. And I said, well, if I go back home and go to work, I can probably buy all of that stuff. But, I think I'll go back home. So, of course, in the end, they offered me a nice bonus to stay and do all of that stuff. But I was ready to go back home. Yeah. I enjoyed the opportunity of the Japanese culture, and I enjoyed the opportunity of being with a team of folks, representing this country. But, my trip back home wasn't a good trip. And they prepared us well, because they said, hey, when you go back home, don't wear your uniform. Don't go through the airport with your uniform. Don't wear anything of military attire, because people, looked at us as if we lost the war in Vietnam. They didn't understand that. And I walked through the airport, in my civilian clothes, and people recognized me. I mean, they knew I was in the military. I was clean shaven. I was in the military. I wasn't in any military attire or anything like that. But, I wasn't slouched over or anything. I was straight up, and just marching and doing my thing. And they knew. And so, I came back home, saw soldiers that were spit on, they were cussed at, and, different things were thrown at us in the airport, that type thing. But I knew, I said, you know what? I didn't start this war. I didn't end it. I don't feel like we won it. I just feel like we did what we had to do. And that's all I could say. And I did not have to go to Vietnam, but the war in Vietnam was coming down to an end. But, I was, I could have been in that same scenario as everybody else. And had I been in that scenario, I would have had to do the best I could to stay alive and keep my comrades alive, because, the way it turned out for me and the way I look back on it now, I've always worked in a team concept. Those have been my best assets, working in a team concept. So going into the Marines was really an extension of high school and middle school and everything else. I was always on a team. I was not always the superstar on the team, but I was always one of the catalysts on the team. And in the Marine Corps, it turned out to be the same way.
Right.
And that's why I learned to get, for, our PTs or whatever. I mean, I learned to do 25, 30, how many push-ups I had to do. And as far as, running the distances and stuff like that, I got down to my 17 minutes, running a 3-mile race, that type thing. And I learned to swim exceptionally well. And, I had time to do that in Japan because I was on a little island, and it was like, what else are you going to do?
Got to keep yourself busy.
What else you got to do? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much you can buy, only so much you can do, that type thing. So I studied a lot, and that's how I got the promotions. Shined my boots a lot. My clothes were pressed, and I paid Mama-san, good money to make sure they were washed and cleaned and ironed.
Right.
And I learned to shine shoes pretty well. So the guys in my platoon that weren't really adept at it, I do it for them and make sure that they paid me accordingly. So we would always, they'd always give me money. Yeah, Jones, you know how to do this. Can you iron my clothes? Can you iron this? Can you shine my shoe? Can you, make sure my chevrons are, in place and stuff like that? And sure I can, but you got to pay me.
Right.
But you got to pay me, and they did. So, I was very fortunate. And when they'd go out for office hours in the evening, a number of times they weren't disciplined enough with their money. And when it was time for them to go home, they didn't have enough money to send their stereos and a lot of things like that home. I'd always buy them a little on a dollar, that type thing. Send them home to my family, and, had some suits made, customized just for me. My name in it and everything. I never had anything like that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So it was like, this is quite an experience. But more importantly, the greatest thing I learned from that is it's just such an honor to represent this country. It gave me a chance to see other countries and how they lived and how they worked, that type thing. It just wasn't home. And it's like, wow. I just said, I am glad to go back home. I can't wait to get back home, man, because it was like, they were third world countries, and it just wasn't American. It wasn't what I was used to. And as much as I learned from my social studies books and stuff like that, and I knew a lot from social studies, but I had never lived in another culture. And I had never seen so many different cultures, come together, and the things that they would do. It was like, America's got problems, but, America's my home.
Let's take a quick break.
Before we continue, we'd like to share a resource that may be helpful to veterans and their families. The Battle Buddy app from vetlifetoday.org is designed to connect veterans with support, resources, and a community that understands their experiences. If you or a veteran you know could benefit from those resources, we encourage you to download the Battle Buddy app and learn more at vetlifetoday.org. Yeah, sometimes you just don't appreciate it until you've been away from it for a little while, and then you realize that, for all the problems, it's still a pretty darn good place to be.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
So you came back. Did you move back home then, or what happened when you got back home?
Well, when I came back home, I had a family, and I had a daughter, and I'd send money back home to, take care of her, that type thing. And then I started looking for employment. Now, mind you, before I went in the Marines, it was tough getting a job because I didn't have any experience.
Yeah.
But when I came back, man, a number of companies contacted me wanting to know if I would, work with them and, do those kinds of things, that type thing. And I said, nah, I'm going to school, and, military's paying me as long as I go to school and get a good grade, that type thing. So I did that. And the more I thought about it, I said, you know what? The career I want to go into, I don't want to know a lot about it, but I want to learn a lot about it. And I want to go in and see if there's an opportunity to change the culture. And change the culture, I was thinking, well, see if I can get more, veterans in and more people of color in, to do a lot of the work that needs to be done. Guys contacted me here at the Board Water Night and asked me to come there and go to work. He was a Marine.
Yeah.
And his son is our general manager now.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a Marine. I was out running at home one day, and he come running up there next to me. He said, hey, he said, man, he said, you just getting out of the military? I said, Marine Corps. He said, I'm a Marine. We hit it off really nice. He said, I need you to come to the Board Water Night. I said, I don't know anything about energy or anything like that. He said, but you're a lifelong learner. You'll learn this stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll try it for a couple of weeks, but I'm not going to give you more than that. He says, okay, you come on over and, we'll see how it works out. And when I got here, I was shocked. I mean, a number of the people who were people of color were pushing brooms, and that's where they worked. And everybody had beautiful secretaries. And I said, I was starting out at the bottom. And they asked me, well, can you clean the toilet? Can you do this? I said, I've been trained by your United States government to clean toilets inside out. You can't show me anything new, but I can do it for you as long as you understand, I'm here to move up in the organization. And in 6 months, they gave me an opportunity to work in the office because I could type with the best of them. I could file, I could track stuff, I could organize stuff, I could walk and chew gum. And I didn't smoke, so I was still staying fit and doing the things I did. And so I was in management within 6 months. And then within that year, I was promoted to supervisor. I moved up quickly because I took a liking to what was going on. And I didn't know everything, but I was learning very quickly. And I was learning, how can I make this situation better than it is today? And since I've been here, first 18 years of my career, we did construction services. And at that time, you could take your tools home and, do what you needed to do and bring them back the following weekend. Well, I knew a lot of friends. So I said, oh, man, well, I can take tools home and I can bring them back Monday. And Saturday, we can pour a basement floor. And then Sunday, I can clean up the tools. And then Monday, I can bring them back in. And I did that for a few months. And then other folks wanted to know, well, how are you making all this money? Well, I got friends and they got things that need to be done, be it deck patios, concrete, floor and pours and that type of thing. Can we work with you on this? Of course you can. So I developed a system very quickly. I had 4 or 5 guys working with me. I would set up, with the customer, what needed to be done. They would do the work. I'd pay them, and I'd get the cut.
Right.
And we did it all over the region. And then after a while, the Board Water Night cut that out. Probably making more money than I was being paid.
Right. Yeah, you can't take tools home anymore.
No, you can't take tools home ananymore.
I remember. I do remember that when guys would take pole setters home.
Oh yeah.
And set up their pole barns.
Yeah, we did all
bring
that.
a trencher home and put in some electric.
We did all of that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We did all of that.
Not anymore.
not anymore. But I've been blessed because, when I came here, we were still using typewriters. I was typing 60, 70 words a minute. It didn't bother me. But I also had time to think about how can we make this better? And, I had a secretary who, she was good at shorthand. She wasn't good at, a lot of the other aspects. So I went to school and took Fortran. I took Cobalt to try and understand how do computers work, because my goal was to develop what's called today online time. So I brought it. I went there, took the classes, failed miserably. I didn't understand any of that. I knew I was in over my head, but I took it anyway. But the saving grace was I knew enough to get an expert to be my secretary who could do it and make it happen. And I hired this guy, Eric Stancliffe. I hired him. I changed his title from secretary to office supervisor. And he was 6'8", 250. I got complaints from the guys because they said, man, we're used to coming in here seeing a pretty secretary. We can't look at that guy. He was 6'8", 260, and good Christian guy. And, he said, Mr. Jones, you don't have to use any psychology on me. Just tell me what you want me to do. I said, I want you to do online time. And he had a library background, a very Christian background, and he made it happen. And we worked together really well. And then when that was done, he went back home to Utah, I think it was. And, I was blessed to develop that online time. They wouldn't let us use it for about 4 or 5 years because we still hadn't developed a lot of special codes that need to be put in it, that type thing.
Right.
But in the end, it's very similar to what we use today. And I also developed an opportunity for people to move up in the organization, because when I came here, people didn't have the skills to move up. So a lot of the folks, even though they wanted to move up, they couldn't because they didn't have the skills. And I developed what was called an assessment sheet where they could learn those skills, and the journeyman would actually have to sign off on it so that they were proficient in those fields, and it allowed people to move up into those ranks. A number of people didn't like that, and I was changing the organization, the culture of the organization, but our HR department got behind me and they backed me 100% because they knew all I was asking for was fairness, and we were able to establish that. People were able to move up. I hired females into the organization in the construction industry, and that was they didn't like that at all.
That was not a popular thing.
It was not a popular thing.
No.
And I found out it wasn't a popular thing very quickly because I had bought and purchased a Corvette. Apparently somebody didn't like it well enough where they went out and scratched it all up. And I didn't get mad about it or anything like that. I just said, hey, this is not going to change the way I do things. And I was fortunate that my insurance company said, don't worry about it. We got your back. What color do you want it? And they made it happen. Yeah. I hired the first female painter at the Board of Water and Light. I could have gone with an apprentice, but I said, nope, I want a journey person, painter, and I want a female. All the guys were painters, and they were all related.
Well, it's an interesting thing about the utility industry, right? Is for a long time, there are certain names that that's what they've done their whole lives, and
and I recognize that, and I recognize the culture I was in, and I recognized it was up to me to make some inroads, some culture changes, because I knew eventually that's the way it had to be. And I knew as long as we gained some camaraderie together, in the long run, we'd be a lot better off. Right. And, a number of people, they said, wow, young black guy, and, he's a smart guy. He probably knows enough to blow us all up. So they didn't give me a lot of problem in terms of, hey, I want you guys to do this, or I want you to do that. They just did what they had to do. And, that's how I managed to continue my work and my career here at the Board of Water and Light. After a while, it's like a family unit. I mean, everybody knows each other. They know, that, hey, we're all here to make the money we can, go back to our respective homes. And that's the way it is. It's not real tough or, anything like that. Yeah.
So you were in construction services then for a while?
My first 20 years,
okay,
if you will. And then they asked me what else I wanted to do. And I said, well, I like marketing. I like organizational assessment and training because that's what I did when I was in construction. And I said, as we continue to grow together as people, I think we need a diversity, inclusion, and equity initiative here at the Board of Water and Light. And so they put me, out there to do those kinds of things. And then they asked me, well, what else is it you wanted to do? And I said, it's amazing to me. We're a $1 billion company and we don't have someone advocating for us in Washington at the state level, at the local level. I said, I really think you guys need to think about getting a lobbyist in here to protect the interest of what so many people are doing here. I thought they would get a lobby team to come in here.
Yeah.
They said, Cal, we love the idea. You're it. I said, wait a minute.
I'm not a lobbyist.
I'm not a lobbyist. They said, well, you'll learn.
Right.
So I said, well, I'll just keep my old job. And they said, Cal, we got somebody else for your old job. This is your job. So, I thought about it and I read about it and I thought some things through and I said, well, okay, yeah, I guess I can do this. We have a lobby team that can do things out of Washington, state level. I need a lobby team that can actually follow things at the state level because I don't want to do parties every night, that type thing, because I know I'll get into trouble. I said, but I'll manage things at the local level, and lobby, for a team here at the local level. So I hired a lobby team to come in and represent us at the state. I give them some direction in terms of what we need in terms of having an advocate for the Board of Water and Light. And I changed lobby teams all the time, and that was unheard of when I did it. But I changed them because I wanted a different perspective as we went along, and as I could see, we were growing in a number of different ways. So I was able to do that. I really liked working at the local level because I was on a number of boards, and a number of those people who were running for public office, I would establish a good working relationship long before they get into, being a representative or a commissioner or a senator or governor or anything like that. And that's how I established close working relationships with them. And I had no problem when I called them because they knew who I was. I knew who they were. I knew where they went to church. I knew when their anniversary was. I knew who their dentist was, their pastor, their rabbi, their kids' birthdays. I knew all that stuff. So, we formed a close working relationship no matter what. We as an organization, we didn't always get what we wanted, but we always had a seat at the table because I always had a friend on the other side of the aisle. And be it Republican or Democrat or independent, I made friends with everybody because whoever is in leadership, I was representing this organization, and I just wanted a seat at the table.
Well, it sounds like the truth is that you develop these actual relationships, not transactional relationships. You know what I mean? Like you knew these people and cared about them long before you would ever thought you would ever need anything from them. And it feels like today, a lot of times people become your friends because they want something from you, but that doesn't sound like that's anywhere near how you conduct business. No,
and that's why, people that are in, even now, people who are in office now, I have great working relationships. One who's a senator was in charge of the Appropriations Committee. I played football with her dad at Eastern. I knew her when she was just a tiny whippersnapper.
Yeah.
I was the one that gave her dad a reference letter when he went to GM. And I was there when he retired and went to Texas. So we have a good working relationship. The Gov, I knew her, when she was just getting into the business or whatever. But our lobby team pretty much worked with people who are in the leadership of everything. But, they know who I am. Yeah. And we don't always get what we want, but we get a seat at the table. We get at least to hear us, and at least we get a chance to voice how what we do is so different than that of what Consumers does and or DTE.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's what you're continuing to do today. Then that's your
This will
role?
be my 50th year in the.
I was going to ask, Calvin. I just didn't know how. Thank
This
you.
is this will be my 50th year in the energy industry, and it's been just it's just been a whirlwind of things changing all the time.
Right.
And I've been so fortunate and blessed to be at the forefront of so many things that I never thought I'd be interested in. I never thought they would be as important as they are today. We went through the ice storm together here at the Board of Water Night. We didn't know what we didn't know when we went through that ice storm, but I reported to work every single day.
Yeah.
I was the one pushing paper and pencil because, I mean, to me, I've always had a backup plan, and, I felt for the people that I was trying to represent, and we try to find ways to get some things done, that type thing. And eventually we went on to developing a system that, we stay on top of storms now. I mean, anytime we know when they're coming in, we have people who come together and we talk about who's on first, who's on second, third, fourth. We have a plan. We didn't have a plan then because we didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of change and been part of a lot of that change that we're involved with today. And, I've been very fortunate every step of the way because every 3 years I take a look at, am I learning something new? Yeah, I'm learning something new. Am I having fun doing what I'm doing? Yeah, I'm having fun doing what I'm doing. Am I working with people who, who have my back and I have their back? Yeah, I do. So it's like working with a family, really. And it's like, even though we've had transitions here and there, I've been part of, seeing good people leave, but I've been part of hiring great people who replace them and then developing those relationships again and making sure it goes the way it needs to go. That's why I spend so much time in the people industry because that's where I'm most comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can see that. I mean, I haven't known you but maybe a month. But, we've been in some pretty good meetings together, so I can completely see that.
And that's another reason I use Martin Luther King's statement all the time. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
And inside teamwork makes the dream work. The T stands for together. The E stands for everyone. The A stands for achievement. And the M stands for more. Everyone achieves more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of questions I want to go back on. One is you mentioned the ice storm, but do you recall the storm in 1998?
Oh yeah.
The 100-mile-an-hour straight line winds?
Oh yeah.
I was an electric lines dispatcher.
Oh man.
Working for
you were
consumers.
really on the front line.
Oh, I came in on Saturday, and I didn't go home until the following Sunday. We slept right there. So.
Oh my gosh.
So you remember that? And
yeah.
And for years after that, it always felt like every storm was the first time we'd ever done it because nobody really had a plan. But that's completely changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other question I wanted to ask you is, and this goes back, so I kind of see a pattern, and so I want to ask this question. I'm trying to figure out how to frame it correctly. But so when you were in school and you were looking at history, you realized that there weren't a lot of people in history books that looked like you.
Correct.
So you went and found people who looked like you to figure out what history really looked like.
Yes.
And then your family, when you're joining the Marine Corps, says to you, "It's going to be a bunch of big white guys there.
Yep.
No one's going to look at you." But you got there and you realized that there were some folks who looked like you.
Yes.
Right? And then you came here, and the people that looked like you were cleaning toilets and sweeping floors.
Yeah.
And so, but you changed that. You changed the culture. You brought the right people in, and you're seeing more people look like you, more representation. I guess is the best word to use.
Yes.
So, talk to me about the power in our youth today, seeing people that look like them doing what you do, seeing people that look like them, representing them in government. What's the power in that?
Well, First of all, I want to say this. I was inspired to make that move because of the draft. I was inspired to come to that resolution because of the draft. Our young people are really missing out on experiencing other countries and finding out the culture of other countries and how those people feel about Americans in their country, that type of thing. I had a different flavor and understanding for America once I went abroad.
Yeah.
And there was just no going back or changing that. This is the greatest country in the world, in spite of the problems and difficulties we're going through then and even now. I wouldn't want to be any other place. Without that experience, though, I think young people are tremendously missing the greatest opportunity to understand the greatness of this country. It's been given to them. They haven't had to earn anything. It's been given to them. They haven't had to go through anything. It's been given to them. I had to earn every single dime and nickel I ever got. And based on that, I got a chance to learn life lessons in terms of you got to get along with folks, man. Yeah, we were in there, and if we had to go to war, then we had to go to war. But if I had my druthers, I'd spend an enormous time in terms of making sure that we find a way to settle things peacefully. Because war is just not the answer. It's just not the answer. And I think young people coming up today, they're missing a significant opportunity to serve this country. I wish the Peace Corps would come by, and I wish, people would have to go through it because I think they're missing a big understanding of what this country is about. I'm not interested in burning the flag. I'm not interested in doing anything like that because I know the bloodshed that has been put into that flag, and I know what it means, and it means a great deal to me. And, I had to earn that right to feel this way. I think young people are certainly missing out on that.
So I've asked you a ton of questions. We've been here for about an hour and a half, a little bit.
Doesn't seem like
more or less. I know. Time flies.
it does.
Time flies.
Oh, I also want to share with you something else in high school. When I was in high school, there weren't a lot. We had Black History Month, and at Eastern High School, we didn't have posters of people of color on the bulletin boards and stuff like that. Well, I was into the books, and I said, we've got to change that. And this country was going through a lot of turmoil, including riots and everything else. We were in the cafeteria one day, and I talked with a number of students, white and black, in terms of this has got to change. And we got to do something to change it. We got to do something together to change it. We went to the principal's office. They wouldn't talk to us about it. They said, go back to class. We went there a number of times, and they kept telling us, just go back to class. You're not, we're not paying you any attention. So we staged a sit-in at Eastern High School. And it was black students, white students, Mexican-American students, and they told us to go back to class. We didn't. I was scared as all get out because Eastern was known for wrestling, and we had wrestling champs all over. I said,
Right.
They could take us if they wanted to, but they called the police. Police came in. They brought a black and white bus in case they had to bus us all out of there to wherever. And then they asked us for a spokesperson for the group. I was one of the spokespersons for the group. They called my mother up there. We didn't have a lot of money. And she said, boy, you better know what you're doing because I ain't got no money. All I got is some money for the rent. And if you go to jail, I ain't got no money. I said, Mom, in my heart, I said, you know what? I'm not going to go to jail for something that isn't worth it. And this is worth it. So I went to the principal's office, and I brought some other folks in there with me as well. And I made sure I had white students, black students, and Hispanic students. And we negotiated an opportunity where we could have, Black History Month celebrated. Also out of that, we got an assembly. And we had dashikis that we were wearing during the course of the assembly. I brought, he was the quarterback at that time, Jimmy Ray of Michigan State University. Brought him in as a speaker. Gene Washington brought him in as a speaker, talking about their experience of coming to MSU from, wherever they came from as well. And after that, I talked about the fact that, only the honor students got a chance to be on the radio in the morning, and they made it available. They made it available where I could do the announcements in the morning and the announcements in the evening, and they made a number of concessions. But had I not made, that decision to draw a line in the sand and change the culture of where I was at then, it would not have changed. Yeah. And like my mother said, I ain't got no money for you. And she was right. She didn't have any money. And I knew it. I was scared as all get out. But, in my heart, I said, this is the right thing to do. Especially when they brought those big buses up there, and those policemen were like, they weren't the nicest in the world. And
No.
I didn't know what. I knew I was working in fear, but I said to myself, if this is the way it is, I'm just going to have to deal with it and go forward.
Settled it peacefully, though.
I did. And I should say we did, because, I didn't know I'd reach so many people talking about, making a change at Eastern High School, because it was like I wasn't trying to be anything special. I just tried to, give us an opportunity to, recognize people, black and white, in terms of what's going on, that type of thing. And once I really talked to them about it, that type of thing, there were so many more that were interested in it. They were just afraid to, face the consequences of what was going to be happening.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things, right? One person raises their hand, and there's 20 other people that are thinking that. They just aren't going to say it or ask it. Yeah.
And I guess, there again, that probably had a lot to do with me saying, hey, I'll take a look at these different military branches, and, if I got to do something, if I have to die for this country, I want to die with the biggest, baddest dudes I can find.
Right. You're going to do it on your terms.
And do it on my terms, yeah.
Absolutely.
And when I went in, we didn't have women in our platoon or whatever. They had their own area where they trained.
Right.
We had our own area where we trained and did everything that needed to be done. I'm so glad that was the case, because
too many ways for Calvin to get in trouble.
Too many ways to be in trouble. And
That's
it's like,
right.
no. But I was so proud of wearing that uniform every chance I get. And, it's carried on with me today. We have a veterans program here. One of the executive directors that's over it. And I've always prided myself on looking out for the veterans that we have here, having a veterans club where we can kind of get to do some things together, have some fun, share stories about, the experience, that type thing. And I've also extended it to, Rosie the Riveter. Actually had them come in and talk about their experience in supporting our men and women during the course of war and stuff like that. So it's grown significantly, and people have a greater deal of respect for veterans and people in uniform now than they had before. So, it's a lot, but I enjoy doing it. I'm shocked they pay me what they do, but I'll take it.
That's right. Some days you are like, oh, they pay me to do this. This is great. Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoy doing it. And there's so much, it's been a joyous ride here. It really has. There've been some ups, some downs, but those are minimal compared to, what we've been able to accomplish here and, make happen. So it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
So it's been a pleasure getting to know you. I do have one final question.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So I ask everyone the same question, and it really is, if you think about it, the idea here is that people will listen to these stories and learn something from them years from now. So think about it in these terms. So like 100 years from now, someone is listening to your story. What message would you like to leave them with?
Wow. Well, I'd probably want to leave them with a number of messages. never judge a book by its cover. Never, ever judge a book by its cover. Get to know your history. Get to know the history of this country that you represent. You were born here. You were raised here. Wherever you in life, you're an American citizen. And you have to hold your head high and be proud of the fact that, we've done some great things in this country that other countries have never done. We are a world power in this country, but we do other things. We go to space. We go to a number of different things. We don't have any challenges that exceed being an American. Mm-hmm. So I would challenge them to, go beyond what they know today. Go beyond what they know tomorrow. Go well beyond, anything that you think you know, and just, do something great for this country. Do something that you'll absolutely be proud of for this country. And don't expect anything for it. Just do it. I think that's what I'd say.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And thanks for taking time out today to talk with me.
Oh, man. It was beautiful. It was, I kind of got choked up, with some of those answers, just thinking about them. And I was like, wow, man, that really touched me. So it was very nice. It was very honorable to sit down with you and talk this thing through. And I don't think anybody's ever asked me to talk about my experience in terms of the military or whatever. So,
Thank you for listening to the Veterans Archives podcast and for helping us honor the service and sacrifice of our nation's veterans. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with others so more people can hear these important stories. To learn more about our mission, watch additional veteran interviews, or find out how to record a veteran story, please visit veteransarchives.org. And if you or a veteran you know needs support or resources, we encourage you to download the Battle Buddy app from vetlifetoday.org. You can also hear Veterans Archives on Reads Across America Radio every Thursday at 5 p.m.